Time is against us. Time waits for no man. Times change, time runs on, time flies, time stands still, and I'd take time to spend time talking about time anytime. But what is time? What I want to do in this episode is give you all a very general introduction to the philosophy of time and the state of the debate today. So, when it comes to time, philosophers are broadly divided into two camps called A theory and B theory. A theorists believe that time can be divided into past, present and future, and there are temporal properties. So the Peninsular War has the property of pastness. The war between the Mayans and the Skedar has the property of futurity. Past, present and future are actual, real distinctions that you can make, and time passes as it flows from the future into the present and into the past. B theorists believe that all times are equal and often draw an analogy between time and space. In space, there's no such place as here, that's just the name we give to this bit where we happen to be. There's nothing spatially special about here, no property of here-ness. Similarly, B theorists think that there's no such thing as the present. It's just the name we give to the bit of time where we happen to be, but all times actually exist equally. And some people believe that time is cyclical. And some people believe that time is cyclical. And some people believe that time is That was a joke. The distinction between A series and B series comes from the pleasingly named John MacTaggart Ellis MacTaggart, who rejected the B series because he thought it ruled out the possibility of change. Imagine a hot pie that cools down. If A theory is true, then the pie is currently hot and then it becomes cool. The moment at which the pie is hot moves from the present into the past and then into the further and further past. Whereas, if the B theory is true, MacTaggart thought, there isn't any genuine change. If the pie is hot and then it cools, then the time at which the pie is hot is always in the same earlier than relation to the time at which the pie is cool. Saying we have a hot pie at time t1 and a cold pie at time t2 doesn't describe change any more than saying there is a chair over there is not a chair over there describes change. The B series involves permanent relations, whereas the A series is more dynamic. MacTaggart thought that time necessarily involved change, so he rejected the B series. He thought it's not even a legit view of time at all. He thought that if time exists, it has to be like the A series. And he also rejected the A series, weirdly. He thought it was contradictory because of something nowadays known as MacTaggart's paradox. Imagine the universe is A-ish. There really is a metaphysically distinct past, present and future, and there really are properties of pastness, presentness and futurity. Every event will have pastness, presentness and futurity. They'll start off with futurity, then they'll have presentness for a bit, and then they'll move into having pastness. But the A properties are mutually exclusive. Nothing can have pastness, presentness and futurity. That's a contradiction. Now, the obvious response is, well, nothing has all three A properties at the same time. They start off having futurity, then they have presentness, and then they have pastness. And there's nothing contradictory about having a property at one time and not having it at another. But MacTaggart goes one step beyond. If an event is in the future, then it is currently in the future, but it will be in the past. That means it has second-order temporal properties. It has present futurity, i.e. it is presently in the future, and future pastness, i.e. it will be in the past. And when it is in the past, it will have past futurity, i.e. it used to be in the future. But again, we get a contradiction. No event can have future pastness and past futurity. That would mean it both is and isn't in the future, which is a contradiction. So again, we say they don't have them at the same time. It currently has future pastness, and then it will have past futurity, which is to say it has third-order temporal properties. It has present future pastness and future past futurity. But again, some of the third-order temporal properties are contradictory, so we have to invoke fourth-order and fifth-order and so on and so on and so on and so on in an infinite regress which goes on forever, solves nothing, and is incredibly grammatically confusing. No matter how many levels you pursue them to, the contradictions in MacTaggart's paradox always come back, and the reason for that is we have invoked time to explain time. We said there's a contradiction with A properties. To try and get rid of the contradiction, we appealed to A properties. We said that nothing has the contradictory properties simultaneously. Simultaneously means at the same time. We tried to fix the broken thing using the broken thing. For this reason, MacTaggart rejected the A theory. He thought that if time exists, it has to be like the A theory, because it can't be like B theory, that doesn't account for change, but the A theory is contradictory, so the only conclusion is that time is unreal. And he was late for every appointment from that day forward. Not really. He thought that time was illusory. We all partake in and operate according to the illusion of time, but it doesn't actually pick out a real feature of the universe. And that's really the beginning of the modern metaphysics of time. The distinction between A theory and B theory is still used today, though nowadays they're broad classes of views. Nobody's just an A theorist or just a B theorist. They all split down into their little factions, and MacTaggart's paradox isn't really thought of as being a particularly good argument anymore. But I think this is one of the coolest areas of philosophy. And there's loads more questions to ask, like, does time pass if it really exists? And do the past and the future really exist? Or are they kind of imaginary? Or what's going on there? But we shall have to save those questions for another time. What do you guys think about this general introduction to time? Do you believe MacTaggart that there couldn't be change in a B universe? If you want to send me your questions, comments, queries, comebacks, fan mail, fan art, fan fiction, fan dances, or anything you want, stick them underneath the video or send them to me by Facebook, Twitter, or by email. Next time, we could either stick with the topic of time and talk about does time pass if it exists, or we could talk about some international politics and economics and something called the resource curse, which is all about who do resources belong to and what should we do about them. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and if you don't subscribe to PhilosophyTube, you're gonna have a bad time. I am beautiful no matter what you say, 'cause there's no objective criterion for aesthetic judgments. Let's see what the philosophers had to say about whether beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Dante asked, what if two equally ideal art critics had conflicting opinions? That's a good question. I'm not sure what Hume would say to that. I guess in that case, either opinion would be fine, because he's not saying there's an objective answer which only the ideal critic can get at. We're just judging judgments, so maybe either judgment in that case is okay. Donald said that whether somebody's an ideal art critic might actually be a subjective thing. We did try and rule that out when we were listing the ideal critic's attributes, but I agree with you that maybe some people would want different things out of their critics. So maybe we should see the attributes Hume lists as things that are necessary for being an ideal critic, but not sufficient. Relatedly, Joseph Hall Patton, yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good way of reading Hume's essay. Maybe we should read it as a list of things which, if you don't have, then you can't be an ideal art critic. Like if your taste is prejudiced or it's not delicate enough, then your opinions shouldn't be considered authoritative. Maybe it's a way of ruling out bad aesthetic judgments rather than ruling in really good ones. Jose Maria Ruiz said that maybe the true test of whether something is beautiful is whether or not it's still considered beautiful outside of the cultures and contexts in which it was created. I don't know whether or not that's true, but I thought that the picture of the ancient Egyptian thing that you sent me was really, really cool, so I will put a link to that in the description. Thank you for that, I thought that was interesting. Mr. Pontop and Michael Ruhrgrock said that if you couldn't understand Shakespeare, then you could legit judge Twilight to be better, because, I mean, Shakespeare's not even a live option for you. You can't even access it or appreciate it as a work of art. I think you might be onto something there. I mean, as an actor, I obviously rebel intuitively against that, and maybe a future drama school admissions panel will hold this against me, but yeah, I think you might be onto something with that. To Tommy Wilson, Google, Pudding Ball, Where's My Gun, and all the other people on Twitter who were asking me who those two comics were, who I said were my favourite, this guy is Stuart Lee. He's a big inspiration to me when I write my stand-up. He's a very, very funny man. And this guy, he's okay. You know, he's pretty funny, pretty decent comedian. He's got his own hour at the Fringe this year. That's pretty cool. He's my brother. That's all we've got time for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!